Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's hard to go to this bill after the last bill. I'll be honest, there's part of me that feels like after the last bill, we'll objectively hurt children and deny them the medical care they and their doctors and their parents are begging for, and say is saving their lives. Whether or not they play sports almost sounds like an afterthought. But this isn't trivial. This bill is the epitome of bullying the most vulnerable kids in our state. A very small group of kids that are just trying to play sports and do it where it makes the most sense for them. The arguments about this bill, I think, show better than anything the ignorance, the bigotry. Yes, I say bigotry. That word means an unreasonable attachment to a mistreatment of a group. It's what this is, an unreasonable attachment. It's one that is not listening to reason. But it also just shows the lack of listening to experts. The lack of listening to the people that come and testify about their personal experiences and the doctors and medical community that speak to the facts. That's been one of the most frustrating things about this. Now, when the House version of this bill came up, the lady from St. Charles that just spoke on the last bill tried to express some science. Of course, we weren't allowed the opportunity to rebut that. But the gentleman from the floor leader district got up and spoke, and he happens to be a doctor in this group, one of the few in this chamber. And he spoke too, right before PQing and not letting the rest of us respond. So with that in mind, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to inquire of the gentleman from Jackson.
Does the gentleman from the floor leader Jackson district yield?
I do.
Thank you, gentlemen. You know, normally I wouldn't inquire of you. I think
That's okay.
But you put yourself out there on this bill.
Yes, I did. Happy to do it.
You voted no on the last bill, right?
I did.
Why?
Well, I have to tell you that I can see both sides of this issue. Do I think that there are kids out there getting this treatment that perhaps don't need it? I absolutely do. The numbers that we've seen, there just can't be a fourfold increase in the number of trans kids in the last decade.
Can't be?
I think that's unlikely, is what I'm saying.
Is it an increase, or is it an increase of awareness and acceptance?
There may be some of that, but I do think that the number of diagnoses we're seeing suggests that there are kids out there that are getting this diagnosis that perhaps just need counseling or are having other problems in life.
But generally, you're a doctor and you trust medical doctors after years of counseling and consultation and studying research to try and make the decision with parents and kids that they think is best for them, right?
Well, I trust doctors and I trust patients, but I don't trust them.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Sure.
I don't trust anything absolutely.
And I think, honestly, gentlemen, if we were talking about limits and making sure that standards of care were followed, I think you might actually get some agreement from us on that, right? And you maybe would have supported the bill, right?
Perhaps, and I have to tell you, I think the bill that was passed, I think it's a very reasonable bill, and I've told other people this.
But you're still a no.
There were concessions that were made. I actually think it's a good model for other states to follow if they're going to do this.
That you voted no on? It's a model for other states to do that you voted no on?
As opposed to an outright ban is what I'm saying.
Oh, so it's better than the most awful version. I appreciate that. Gentlemen, let's talk about this bill. So, you went to medical school, just to be clear, but you're not a pediatrician or endocrinologist, right?
I am not.
Okay, but I'm hoping you can help since I think you've got the most education on this subject. You talked on the last time on this bill about the differences between boys and girls' body in sports.
Yes.
Now, when that was talked about, there were some stats given about kids prior to puberty and how between genders, the scores and results were actually pretty much identical. Is that fair to say?
Are you saying during that debate that was given?
Yeah.
I don't recall that specifically, but
Would you say that's roughly true?
I'd have to look at that, but even at a young age, I see differences.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you I went to a track meet 2 weeks ago where my daughters competed in first and second grade, and in both grades, the girls actually had higher scores. The number one boy in most of the races would have been fourth or fifth in the girls, and that just happened to be because it was a particularly athletic crop of girls,
Right.
and
I
maybe a
was
less
at
so
soccer
boys. I
game
think it
last
probably
week.
varies.
Girls were playing against my son's team just because
Yeah.
they needed more players, and a lot of them were actually better than.
Oh yeah,
the
my
players that
daughter destroys the boys in basketball when she plays with them. Now, I think the question then becomes, at puberty, you started talking about how some of that changes. Why?
Well, just the testosterone, just the nature of human beings. There is a sexual dimorphism that mammals exhibit.
Okay.
And it's the laws of nature, and it is what it is.
So what if a kid has been on puberty blockers and didn't go through puberty?
In terms of competing with sports,
Yeah.
even when you have that, you can't block things completely. There are innate differences that happen.
But if
with boys
puberty
and girls
is
and
the
men.
thing that is causing those differences to play out in a way that really makes a difference in athletic achievement, isn't blocking puberty a way to, doesn't that get in the way with this happening?
Not completely. So you still have the height differences, the bone differences, the strength differences. You can't block it completely.
Interesting. You're not an endocrinologist, because
I'm not an endocrinologist.
That's not essentially what the endocrinologists were telling us, right?
Well, I'd be happy to talk with them, but
Okay.
to completely block nature, I think you can't do that.
Interesting. Now, if a trans boy, so born a biological girl, is taking hormones, he's going to start looking more like a boy body, right?
A trans boy.
Yes.
So a person, we call that a person that
They're
was
taking
born as a
testosterone
woman,
and
takes testosterone. They're going to take on male characteristics.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that's a fact.
so we wouldn't want a bill that says that they have to play based on what their birth certificate said, right?
Well,
Because that would actually sort of create the problem that you said you were trying to prevent, right?
I think the issue is that when you do these things, if you take the testosterone, we test for testosterone. That's a foreign substance.
So essentially, they would just not be allowed to play any sports.
Well, they could do the sport that they were born as. I think that's the point.
Well, they couldn't because they're on testosterone.
Well, they'd have to be off of it to do that.
Right, so they can't have the medical treatment
Want-
that they're getting.
There would have to be a choice to compete in sports.
Interesting.
At the high level.
So instead, we're just banning them from playing sports. Do you think it's important for kids to play sports?
I do. I think athletics should be a part of every kid's life.
I agree. And especially the most vulnerable kids.
The difference is
I better hurry. I'm sorry, I've
nobody
got a
is
lot of
saying that
questions
you
to get
can't
through.
get together at your church with people and play basketball. Nobody's saying you can't go play golf with boys and girls, transgender or not.
You're just going to
When
be
you're
ostracized from
when
the
you're-
thing that your friends
when
are all
you're playing
doing.
at a high level and the stakes are very high, including college scholarships,
Yeah.
then I think you have to have
We're
some
talking about
rules in
grade
place.
school, right? Elementary
Talking
school?
about sports, when you have sports
This
at a high
bill
level.
starts at elementary school, right?
Well, you have to start somewhere.
Okay, just checking.
And when you have sports
all
at a
right,
high level,
I got to ask you
think
this question.
That is what we're trying to address.
This is something that when we debated this bill a couple of years ago, a member of your side decided was a sort of gotcha question with all of us. What is a girl?
What is a girl?
Yeah, what is a girl?
To me, or
What is a girl? You're a doctor. What is a girl?
I think a girl is a human that's born with chromosomes. They have female organs. They exhibit female characteristics.
Okay,
Since then,
What
maybe
chromosomes?
it's changed.
what chromosomes?
It would be XX.
Are you familiar with Swyer syndrome?
I am not.
Okay. It affects 1 in 80,000 people. That's roughly close to 100 people in Missouri, where you're born with the XY chromosome, but you exhibit female anatomy. Most of those kids are born, and their birth certificate will say they're female because they exhibit female anatomy. They identify as female. But at puberty, their body starts changing and looks more and more like a male, unless they take puberty blockers, which would be banned by the last bill. So a girl that's born with an XY chromosome, but starts to look like a boy because we forced her to, Where's she going to play sports?
The answer to that would be, I don't know.
Yeah.
The issue is...
You know what your bill says? The bill says she would have to play on the girls' team, right?
No bill is a perfect bill. And so...
We're passing laws here, gentlemen, and we're not talking about a large group of people, right?
No, we're not.
How many people are intersex?
I can't tell you the statistics.
1.7% exhibit intersex traits. That's actually about the same as having red hair. It's a decent number of kids that fall in a gray area, right? Like Swyer syndrome, where maybe they don't fit easily in what their birth certificate says. But this bill takes a completely blanket approach and says that girl whose body is now becoming a male body, she's going to have to play on the girls' team, and she's going to have to become physically a boy. Aren't you creating exactly the problem with this blanket policy that you and the bill sponsor talked about wanting to prevent with this bill?
I think you could make an argument that no bill is perfect. What we're trying to do is for the vast majority of athletes out there that they have a level playing field.
Well, isn't that, though, gentlemen, exactly what Misha and the NCAA and groups that are trying really hard to handle the nuance, the medical and biological nuance of these questions, they're trying to address that and incorporate that to make sure that the vast majority, actually all kids, are able to play in a fair environment. I think they're trying to do it too.
Right, and the Olympics has essentially banned females from swimming because to compete, you have to have started puberty blockers before puberty and to have a testosterone level less than 0.05
Banned
nanometers.
females from swimming? What are you saying?
They have said that the World Swimming Organization has said that to do that, you have to have started puberty blockers before puberty.
Yes.
And to have a certain amount of testosterone in your serum.
Would this bill allow that to happen?
There is nobody out there that would meet those requirements right now.
Right now, there might be eventually. Would this bill allow that to happen?
The Olympics have essentially banned
No, they haven't, though.
transgender athletes
That's
for
the
swimming.
point. They didn't say, the Olympics didn't say, we're limiting you to what your birth certificate says. The Olympics said, hey, let's look at, for each sport, what are the things that make this most appropriate and fair so that everyone can compete.
And they have said, and one of the things they've said is that you have to have started puberty blockers before puberty.
No, I heard you, gentlemen.
And have a certain testosterone level.
This bill doesn't allow that.
There are hardly any women that could meet that.
Yes, but there are some, aren't there?
Who could meet that?
We will see.
So they have essentially banned it. Now, are the Olympics...
Gentlemen, if we were talking about a bill that was trying to respect that same kind of nuance that said, if someone falls in this category, which, yes, medically can exist and likely will, right? That likely will happen, that there will be someone that meets those standards. This bill just ignores all of that nuance. All of that nuance that the experts, the medical community, and the people that want fair sports are actually working on, right? Wouldn't we be better off taking a nuanced approach that respects medical science and the experts in sports?
If you look at the Olympics, there are going to be no transgender swimmers at the next Olympic Games.
I got to move on because I think you're not answering my question.
We're trying to provide you as well.
Oh, there's a whole lot I wanted to talk to you about, and we just don't have time. How long has this variety of biological sex existed in humanity?
The variety?
Yes.
I'm not sure what you mean by
intersex. The 1.7% that have intersex traits.
Like I said before, I'm not an endocrinologist, but I believe intersex.
Are you familiar with when the first gender-affirming clinic that did transition surgeries existed?
I am not aware of when that existed.
Okay, I'll tell you. Have you ever heard of Magnus Hirschfeld?
I have not.
Magnus Hirschfeld, the Hirschfeld Clinic in 1930, was the first trans clinic. They performed surgeries. It was a safe place for trans and LGBTQ folks to come and be there. Do you know what happened after they built a medical library of information researching the complexities of sexuality and human gender?
I don't know what happened.
It was the first Nazi book burning, when they burned the entire library saying that it was sexually explicit material and then executed half the people involved. Because first they came for the trans kids. Do you want this to be your legacy as the floor leader of the House?
I'm not aware of that. I'll take your word
Maybe
for
you
it.
should-
Gentlemen, you're out of time.